The main type of taiko drum that we use at Bullfrog Arts is a drum like this. This is called a nagado. As you can see, it's kind of like a barrel type of shape and size. You may not have one of these that you can play on to follow along with the videos that we're making. So in this video I'm just going to talk briefly about what you can use as a substitute and how, if you're really determined to use a drum, how you might be able to go about that. So let's talk first of all about a substitute. We find the back of a chair works pretty well. It's about the right height when you stood it behind it drumming along. Obviously you need to be careful what you're using to drum with so you don't damage the chair. A stool, like a tall stool, can also be good, particularly if it's got a cushion on top. My favourite thing to use when I don't have a drum to hand is a cushion, because you don't have to worry about how hard you hit it, and if you've got a cushion big enough, it's absolutely fine for most of the pieces we're going to be learning. Alternatively, you can play taiko just in the air. So there's a lot of physical movements with taiko. You'll be able to move along with those even if you're not hitting something. And it'll look just as good even if it doesn't sound quite as good. If you really want to use a drum and you don't have a taiko drum to hand, there are a few things you could consider. You could try making your own version of a drum or a taiko drum by using a bucket and covering the top of that bucket with tape. So you can just use gaffer tape or parcel tape. And across the top of the bucket, if you imagine it like a clock face, go from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, then 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and then the two diagonals, and keep taping over like that until you've got a completely filled skin. If you want to scale that up to something a bit more like this, then you could do the same thing with a large bin. You could try an upturned bin or an upturned bucket, but just be careful how hard you're hitting it, because those the plastic that they're made out of can be quite brittle, so you could find that you go through quite a lot of bins and buckets. One of the best homemade taiko drums that we've come across is using a tyre and the gaffer tape method. It might be just as difficult for you to come across a tyre as it is a taiko drum, but should you happen to have one kicking around, then you could try that. Same idea, just to wrap the tape across 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and round you go until you've got it completely filled. Our final suggestion is to use another type of drum if you have one. You may have a djembe drum or a snare drum that you can use to play along. If you use one of those other drums, just be aware of the drumsticks that you're using. Some drums, djembes for example, aren't designed to be played with sticks particularly, so their skins may be a little bit weaker. So if you're using a drum like that or a snare drum, you just need to adjust. Just make sure the sticks that you're using are a little bit lighter and that you're not hitting them quite so hard.